Three Indiana Fever stars were officially voted in as WNBA All-Star starters, marking a huge milestone for the franchise. But instead of celebrating that accomplishment, the conversation took a dramatic turn almost immediately. Fans quickly shifted their attention to a controversy surrounding the All-Star voting after NBA players ranked Caitlin Clark as only the 11th best guard in the league. That ranking stunned many observers, considering Clark is currently tied for 4th in scoring while also ranking 2nd in assists across the entire NBA. In today's video, we're breaking down the voting controversy, examining the claims of irregularities, and taking a closer look at the mystery surrounding nearly 400,000 votes that appeared to dramatically influence the final results. Many fans believe the numbers raise serious questions, and the debate has only intensified as more details have surfaced. If the evidence tells us anything, it's that this story has become much bigger than a simple disagreement over player rankings.
Is 100% rigged. Make no mistake about it, this is rigged. Paige Bueckers coming in first over Caitlin Clark in fan voting. Knock it off, man. Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. This is nasty work, what y'all did. This is nasty work. 400,000 votes in 3 days for Paige Bueckers. Really?
The headline everyone should have been celebrating this week was a historic moment for the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell officially earned spots as WNBA All-Star starters, giving the franchise an achievement it had never reached before. For the first time in team history, 3 Fever players will take the floor as starters in the same All-Star game. What makes the accomplishment even more impressive is that these weren't honorary selections or last-minute additions. Their starting spots were determined through the league's official voting process, with the final results combining votes from fans, media members, and fellow WNBA players. It was a landmark achievement for the organization and a clear reflection of how much talent Indiana has assembled this season.
At the control, scoop shot. Oh yeah!
Clark, bullseye! Who's it here? Boston pulls, knocks it down.
Caitlin Clark, are we having fun yet?
Mitchell, 3-ball, cash!
Kelsey Mitchell's selection becomes even more meaningful when you look at everything she experienced before this season. Prior to Caitlin Clark joining the Indiana Fever, Mitchell had never been named an All-Star starter and had never played in a WNBA playoff game. She spent 6 seasons carrying a heavy workload while the franchise struggled to find success. Then, everything changed. With Clark's arrival, the Fever became one of the league's biggest attractions, and Mitchell finally earned the recognition of being voted into the All-Star game as a starter. Many fans see that transformation as a reflection of the impact a true franchise-changing player can have on the teammates around her. The fan voting numbers make the story even more interesting. Paige Bueckers finished with approximately 1,451,511 fan votes, while Caitlin Clark followed closely with about 1,423,321 votes. The difference was only around 28,000 votes, despite more than 1 million ballots being cast, and both players finished well ahead of every other guard in the race. Those results alone show just how much support each received from basketball fans across the country.
Shit happens every single game to her, and the league and the refs do absolutely nothing about it.
It's been a minute since you got fined on this podcast.
I have, but then like you see the videos of like literally kneeing and cheap shotting C in the throat. Like if she did that to any of our teammates, we'd be pissed. But like they're definitely targeting her, and the league and the refs do nothing to.
This wasn't speculation coming from an anonymous social media account or a random online rumor. The comments came directly from Sophie Cunningham, one of Caitlin Clark's teammates, who publicly suggested that the physical attention Clark receives night after night goes beyond ordinary defensive play. When someone inside the locker room speaks openly about that kind of pattern, it naturally draws much more attention than fan speculation ever could. Now let's look at why so many fans started raising eyebrows. In the league's earlier fan voting updates, Aliyah Boston ranked first among frontcourt players, while Caitlin Clark led all guards. At that stage, Paige Bueckers was sitting in 5th place, well behind the leaders and not appearing to be in serious contention for the top spot. Then came the final stretch of voting, and that's where the conversation intensified. According to online accounts that closely tracked each official voting update, Bueckers reportedly gained roughly 400,000 additional fan votes during the last 3 days before voting closed. That dramatic surge caught the attention of many fans, who questioned how a player previously sitting in 5th place could make up such a massive gap in just 72 hours. The sudden increase became one of the biggest talking points surrounding this year's All-Star voting and fueled ongoing debate across the WNBA community.
I mean to tell me, from the last time the voting took place, that was public, Caitlin Clark was second, Aliyah Boston was first, Paige Bueckers was 5th. She was in 5th place. She jumped 400,000 votes in 3 days.
Now consider what it would actually take to produce a jump of that magnitude. We're not talking about a typical last-minute rush, where a few thousand fans remember to cast their ballots before voting closes, or a viral highlight generating a temporary spike in attention. A gain of hundreds of thousands of votes over such a short period would require an enormous amount of consistent voting activity across multiple days, far beyond the kind of finish that's usually seen in fan polls. One explanation that has been widely discussed centers on UConn, where Paige Bueckers built one of the biggest followings in women's college basketball. UConn has a passionate and highly organized fan base, and many believe that community rallied behind Bueckers during the final days of voting. There's no doubt that UConn supporters are known for showing up in force whenever one of their stars is involved. Even so, the debate continues because some fans argue there's a significant difference between an enthusiastic fan base creating a strong finish and a late surge reportedly large enough to erase a substantial deficit in only 3 days. That distinction is exactly why the voting results remain a major topic of discussion among WNBA fans.
Y'all mean to tell me her popularity, her name is so hot that she jumped 400,000 votes in 3 days? WNBA voting scandal. This is rigged. It's clear as day. Paige Bueckers wasn't getting no more votes than Caitlin Clark. Knock it off. Stop it. In terms of fan voting, absolutely not. This is a rigged job by the WNBA. They just did not want Caitlin Clark to be a captain once again, and they want to make it look like other players are more popular than her. This is 100%.
When the final fan voting totals were released, Paige Bueckers finished with approximately 1,451,511 votes, while Caitlin Clark received around 1,423,321. That left a margin of only about 28,000 votes, despite Bueckers having trailed by a much wider gap in the earlier voting updates. During the final days, she not only closed the distance, but also climbed past the previous leaders, turning what once looked like a comfortable advantage into an incredibly tight finish. That dramatic shift immediately sparked debate. Was it simply the result of a passionate fan base making one final push before voting closed? Or was there an unusually coordinated effort that dramatically changed the outcome in the final stretch? Those questions quickly spread across social media, with fans offering very different explanations for how the standings changed so rapidly. The timing of the surge is one reason the discussion has continued. A comeback of that size over such a short period naturally attracted attention, especially because it involved the player competing directly with Clark for the top spot among guards. Whether the increase reflected a highly organized voting campaign or an exceptional late wave of fan support, it became one of the biggest storylines surrounding this year's All-Star voting. However, the conversation didn't end with the fan ballots. The aspect that generated even more discussion was the player vote. Once the rankings submitted by WNBA players became public, many fans shifted their attention away from the fan totals and began questioning how fellow players evaluated some of the league's biggest stars. That's where the controversy surrounding the All-Star voting truly intensified.
No mistake about it. Make no mistake about it, man. And you know, this is what I'm saying. Caitlin is up against a lot. Rigged voting, a 400K voting swing in 3 days, The players claiming she's the 11th best guard. Y'all do realize there hasn't been a single player in the league that averaged 20 points and 8 assists.
The controversy reached another level when the WNBA published the breakdown of the player vote. One result immediately grabbed everyone's attention. Caitlin Clark was ranked 11th among guards by her fellow NBA players, while Paige Bueckers received the highest ranking in that category. That single detail quickly became one of the most debated aspects of the entire All-Star selection process. The reason so many people questioned the result comes down to Clark's production on the court. At the time of the voting, she was tied for 4th in the league in scoring, averaging 21.2 points per game, while also ranking 2nd in assists with 8.2 per game. Those numbers placed her among the most productive offensive players in the WNBA and made her one of the biggest driving forces behind Indiana's success.
Caitlin Clark was voted the 11th best guard in the league by WNBA players. And also, which was disgusting, Kelsey Plum was voted as 12th. She's averaging nearly 25 a game. I mean, it's nasty what the WNBA players are doing. The player ranking right here, they got Caitlin Clark at 11. That is beyond disrespectful. These players are haters. 1000%. They are haters. They are haters. That's what's going on right here. There's nothing more, nothing less. These players are jealous. They are envious. They are hating on Caitlin Clark. 1000%. Make no mistake about it.
Caitlin Clark wasn't the only player whose ranking sparked debate. Kelsey Plum was also placed 12th among guards, despite averaging nearly 24 points per game during the season. Seeing two of the league's most productive offensive guards finish outside the top 10 immediately raised eyebrows among fans and analysts alike. While one surprising result might be dismissed as an isolated case, multiple unexpected rankings naturally led people to wonder whether there was a broader trend behind the voting. That conversation became even more interesting once details about the voting process emerged. According to reporting from ESPN, only about 85 of the WNBA's approximately 180 players submitted ballots for the All-Star player vote, meaning fewer than half of the league participated. Reports also indicated that some teams may not have had ballots distributed to every player, making the voting pool smaller than many fans initially assumed. That context is important, because the player rankings did not necessarily represent the opinions of every WNBA athlete. Instead, they reflected the responses of the group of players who ultimately cast ballots. Even so, the results were widely discussed as a measure of league-wide opinion, despite coming from participation that reportedly included less than half of the players. That disconnect became another major talking point, with many fans arguing that the rankings should be viewed through the lens of the voting turnout, rather than as a unanimous judgment from the entire league.
11th? You know, Caitlin Clark is carrying the highest points and assists combined averages in the history of the sport. And she ain't guarded like she's the 11th best guard. That sure as hell ain't true. The level of defensive attention she is accounted for or has sent her way is second to none. So I simply cannot buy that on merit she's 11th.
For longtime WNBA followers, this type of controversy isn't entirely new. Similar debates have surfaced in previous seasons involving other high-profile players. During her breakout campaign in 2023, Sabrina Ionescu was ranked 19th among guards by her fellow players, even as many fans and media members viewed her as one of the league's brightest stars. In another well-known example, Candace Parker was voted the league's most overrated player while she was sidelined with an injury, a result that surprised many around the basketball world. Kelsey Plum has also been at the center of similar discussions after receiving player vote rankings that many believed didn't match her on-court production. When those examples are viewed together, it's understandable why some fans believe a recurring pattern exists. Several players who entered the league with significant attention or generated widespread popularity have later received unexpectedly low evaluations in peer voting. Sabrina Ionescu experienced it. Candace Parker found herself in a similar situation, and now many supporters argue that Caitlin Clark has become the latest player to face the same kind of scrutiny. Whether that's evidence of a broader trend or simply the unpredictable nature of peer voting remains open to interpretation. What is clear, however, is that these discussions continue to resurface whenever a highly visible player receives a ranking that appears difficult to reconcile with their performance on the court. That's why this year's results have reignited a debate that has followed the WNBA for several seasons.
That there ain't some animosity for Caitlin Clark, or whatever word you want to use. And it trickles down to the Indiana Fever as well. Aliyah Boston was 8th in the player rankings in the front court. Now the Fever are supported by the fans, obviously. Where was Kelsey Mitchell was 7th in both. So every Indiana Fever player was significantly lower than how they were rated by the fans.
One of the biggest questions fans have been asking is why these voting results turned out the way they did. At this point, any explanation about players' motivations is purely speculation, and it's important to separate opinion from confirmed fact. Still, a popular theory circulating online is that some veteran players may feel frustrated by the enormous attention, media coverage, and financial impact that newer stars have brought to the league. Whether that idea is accurate or not hasn't been proven, but it has become a major part of the conversation surrounding this year's All-Star voting. Another reason the debate intensified was the timing. The player rankings were released shortly after Alyssa Thomas was involved in a physical play with Caitlin Clark during a loose ball scramble. After reviewing the incident, the WNBA upgraded the foul to a flagrant 2, indicating that league officials determined the contact was more severe than it had initially been ruled on the court. For many fans, those two events occurring so close together naturally fueled additional discussion. On one hand, there was a highly publicized physical incident that resulted in a retroactive officiating upgrade. On the other, Clark was ranked outside the top 10 guards by the players themselves, despite putting together one of the league's strongest statistical seasons. While those events do not prove they are connected, their timing led many supporters to question whether they reflected a broader perception of Clark within the league. Ultimately, a player ballot and an on-court play are two completely different things. One represents opinions expressed through voting, while the other involves competition during a game. Even so, because both became major talking points within such a short period, many fans have viewed them as part of the same larger discussion about how Caitlin Clark is perceived and treated around the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark's popularity and the fact that she came into the league and has been talked about more than anybody else and given credit for, rightfully so, the explosion in the league has led to the pushback, blowback, and resentment more than anything else, rather than, what the right-wing folks will run with, like, she's straight and white, so she's hated. And I still believe that to be the case. You can't tell me with a straight face there's not something to it at this juncture. The Kelsey Plum aspect of it is interesting because she's also straight and white.
When you look at all of these numbers together, it's easy to understand why the debate has continued. Beyond the voting itself, many fans have started asking a different question. Who benefits from these results? And why were they presented the way they were? Those questions have only grown louder because this year's All-Star format included a notable change that caught many people's attention. Unlike previous seasons, the league did not allow the top vote-getters to serve as team captains and draft their own All-Star squads. Instead, WNBA legends were chosen to assemble the rosters. The league explained the format as part of this year's event, but the timing immediately became another topic of discussion, since Caitlin Clark was once again among the leading vote-getters. Some fans see it as nothing more than a scheduling decision, while others believe the coincidence is worth talking about. Either way, it added another layer to an already controversial All-Star process. The conversation also extended beyond social media. Veteran journalist Christine Brennan, who has covered women's basketball for many years, publicly described Clark's player ranking as one of the most fascinating stories she has encountered. That mattered because the discussion was no longer limited to passionate fans online. Experienced reporters were also questioning how a player producing at such a high level could receive that kind of ranking from her peers. Then there's the basketball side of the argument. If Clark is truly viewed as only the 11th best guard, many fans wonder why opposing coaches consistently build defensive game plans around stopping her first. Night after night, she faces the opponent's top perimeter defender, aggressive double teams, traps, and constant pressure, with the clear objective of taking the ball out of her hands. Those defensive strategies are usually reserved for the player opponents believe poses the greatest threat. That's why many supporters believe there is a noticeable disconnect between how Clark is defended on the floor and how she's sometimes recognized away from it. Whether the discussion centers on controversial fouls, the player voting, or promotional decisions, critics argue that her impact isn't always reflected in the recognition she receives. At the same time, her popularity continues to drive television ratings, ticket sales, merchandise purchases, and national attention for the league. What makes the conversation even more compelling is that none of the outside noise has slowed her production. Despite dealing with intense physical defense throughout her rookie season and continuing to face enormous expectations, Clark has remained among the WNBA's statistical leaders, ranking near the top of the league in both scoring and assists, while producing numbers that have placed her in historic company. Now the focus shifts to Chicago, where fans will have another opportunity to show their support during All-Star Weekend. Whatever people think about the voting, one thing is undeniable. The fan response to Clark has been extraordinary from the moment she entered the league. Every sold-out arena, every packed crowd, and every loud ovation tells the story of a player whose impact extends well beyond the box score. The season is far from over. The MVP race is still unfolding, the playoff push is just beginning, and Clark will have plenty of opportunities to let her play do the talking. If anything, this controversy may simply add more motivation as she continues to prove herself on the court. So now it's your turn. Do you think Caitlin Clark was treated unfairly in the WNBA All-Star voting, or were the final results justified? Share your opinion in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest WNBA news, analysis, and biggest stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.